Welcome back to the channel, folks, and to another battle report where I'll be getting myself some American bulge action, so to speak. I'm going to be using the Spearhead Force straight out of the box. The only sort of tweaks that's required is the choices you make for I think maybe just 1 point worth of options for the US paras that you get in the box. Otherwise it's just everything straight out of the box. Going to use the army list as it is and try out one of these starter armies, and I'll be playing against a German Panzer company backed up by a Grenadier company, and Mark's going to be playing them. So let's go over and have a look at the army lists. Here is the US Spearhead Force 100 point list. So what we got? Company HQ of a jumbo and an easy 8. And then within the core formation there is a platoon of 3 easy 8s, 4 Shaffies and 2 Persians. And then in support you've got 3 Calliopes or Calliopes, however you want to say it, and a scout platoon. Can't quite remember the exact name for that, guys, but it's a scout platoon. And then the para platoon. And the options I've got here is just adding to the 7 base unit is 2 bazookas. There's the option of having 1 bazooka and a light machine gun and keeping it at 100 points. But I prefer the 2 bazookas. So there you go, folks. That's the core tank formation. There may be a lot expected from these guys to do a lot of heavy lifting because, you know, these are not particularly well armoured. They're quite hard hitting. I mean, that's anti-tank 12, but they're only anti-tank 10. And there are only 3 of these. The jumbo, by the way, is a 76. Forgot to mention that. So we'll see how it goes, guys. Never used Yanks before myself. We'll see if a small, hard to hit unit, formation rather, can stand up against what I think is going to be a larger German formation.
We have a Panzer IV mixed tank company from Fortress Europe. Both that formations from Fortress Europe. It's got a company HQ of 2 Panzer IVs, with along 75s, but 2 Panzer IVs, 2 Tigers, and 2 more platoons of 3 Panzer IVs. Then you've got a Grenadier company, which has got 3 platoons, 2 of 7 and 1 of 5, each of which has got Panzerfausts. You've got a mortar platoon of 4 81mm mortars, and then you've got company HQ of 2 guys. Now in Fortress Europe they don't have to have Panzerfausts, and they haven't got Panzerfausts.
Yeah, so 3 Panzerfausts across the platoons, and the Tigers are part of the formation as well.
Yeah.
The American Pershing could be seen in some ways as being like the American Tiger tank. It's rated as careful, confident, trained, though it's got a 3+ tactics rating. Now the mobility of the tank is very similar to an American Sherman, 10-inch tactical, but a little bit slower on the dashing side, with 12-inch terrain for 16-inch cross country, but it's got a good cross check, 2+, which is better than, for instance, the Sherman. Now the main gun has got a 36-inch range, which is good, a rate of fire of 2, and an anti-tank of 14, so it compares favourably with Panther tanks and the 88 that you'll get in the Tiger tank, and it's got a firepower of 3+. The front armour's 9, side armour 6, top armour 2, so all round it's a well armoured tank with a really hard hitting gun and some decent mobility. So technically it compares very well to the Tiger, but it doesn't have as good crew statistics, the soft skills that Tiger tanks do. The Chaffee is the replacement really for the M5 Stuart. It's rated as careful, confident, trained, but it's got a 3+ remount for protected ammunition, and this is the veteran version, folks. It's got 3+ tactics for Yankee ingenuity in the same way as the Persian does. The front armour is 4, side armour 3, top armour 1, so it's kind of comparable to the Stuart. It's fast, it's got a tactical of 12 inches, terrain dash 14, cross country dash 20, and a 3+ cross check. It's got a 75mm main gun, which is good for what is effectively a light tank, 28-inch range, a rate of fire of 2, anti-tank 10, firepower 3. It can fire smoke, direct fire smoke, but it's also got the stabiliser. So you have to bear that in mind when on the move. You will get 2 shots, but it will be at a penalty of 1 to hit. So it's a fast, quite well armed, an okay armoured light tank. The trick is how you use it and the danger you expose it to when getting into a good firing position. The Calliope is a multiple launch rocket system mounted on a tank. The tank has now become just the vehicle that carries the Calliope. It loses its main gun. It's rated as careful, confident, trained. It's got a counterattack of just 6 because it's a rocket launcher basically, and hits on a 5+ in assault for the same reason. The front armour is 7, side and rear 4, and top 1. It's got a tactical of 10, terrain dash 14, cross country 18, and cross 3 check, so just like a Sherman tank there. So its weapon is a 48-inch range rocket launcher that has a salvo template, so it covers a big area. Its anti-tank is 2 and its firepower is 5, so that's not so good in terms of digging out dug-in infantry, but you get to cover a very large area with this, and it is relatively cheap in points for something that fires a bombardment and is so relatively well armoured. The mission for today's game is Contact. We both opted for attack, so whilst this game has got a defender, it's still a game where both sides have to attack. And by that I mean, if you refer to the deployment zones you can see here, you'll notice that the defender places objectives and the attacker places objectives, so that the defender, whilst taking that initial impact from the attack, has to then pick themselves up and go and take an objective themselves, which can be tricky. Now, we rolled off to see who's going to be the attacker, who's going to be the defender, and I'm the defender in this mission, so you're going to get to see the Spearhead Force in defence initially, folks. Now, let's have a look at the special rules. You can see immediate reserves for the attacker, ambush for the defender, and then scattered delayed reserves for the defender. So referring back to the map there, you can see these dice. You can see like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When you get a successful reserve roll as a defender, you're going to have to declare which unit is coming on and roll a dice to see where it comes on, which could be good or could be bad. You could have the reserve platoon arriving exactly where you need it, or in the completely opposite corner. So it can be quite tricky in that respect. So winning this game, folks, for both players is all about taking an objective. Right, folks, that is us deployed. We're playing Contact, which is a game we both chose attack. This is a game where even though there is an attacker and a defender, there's reserves for both, and we've both got to take objectives. So it can be quite interesting. So my deployment zone is in this band up here, and you can see the objectives in the box towards the back, and you can see Mark's put an objective there and one over by that hill, and then Mark's deployment zone is a little bit smaller, and I've placed one objective over there and one over here, so they kind of mirror each other in ways.
So, Mark, what have you got on the table and what's in reserve?
Okay. From the Panzer IV Company, the Panzer IV Company HQ is on the table, and the Tiger platoon, or Tiger Zug, is on the table. In reserve, we have 2 more platoons of Panzer IV. On the table from the Infantry Company, we have the Company HQ, 2 platoons of 7, and the Mortar platoon, with the smaller Infantry platoon in reserve.
Right, and that's immediate reserves. And then what have I got on the table? I've got my para platoon, my Calliops, my Chaffees, and 2 Persians in ambush. And then in reserve, sheesh, there's the Scout platoon, the Company HQ, and the platoon of Easy 8s. So it's quite a thin formation on my side before it goes into reserve. So it's going to be quite interesting to see if they can actually hold their own. So that's it, folks. As the attacker, Mark will be going first, so we'll clear up the deployment zones and come back at the end of Mark's turn 1.
So for reserves, we rolled, and we got one of the Panzer IV platoons, which has come on. For movement, the 1st Infantry platoon has moved up here, just at tactical rate. The mortars have stayed stationary, and the 2nd platoon has moved into the building here. They're occupying that. The Tigers remain stationary. The reserve platoon has come on and is hugging the headline, looking for nasty Pershings in an ambush, hoping not to meet them. And the company commander just stayed stationary. And that's basically the elements. And then for shooting, no one really anywhere to shoot on this side, but the mortars had a pop at the paratroopers and hit, but didn't kill them, so they pinned them at the moment.
Yes, that's about as far as the range could go, but it was enough to get that single mortar and a pin. US turn 1, so first of all, these guys unpinned. There's no reserves to be rolled yet, but I decided I was going to pop my ambush with the Persians. The hill's a good point to pop the ambush on, and they've got that 36-inch range. In terms of other movement, these guys are going to have to move. I put them somewhere where, to be honest, we're never ever going to see anything, and they don't have observers, so they rely on platoon commands to actually call in bombardment or use their own line of sight. And then I'm keeping some of these guys in position, and the rest are moving off. Somebody in this house, 2 in this house, the rest moving off. And then in shooting, there was 4 shots needing 5 just for range, because the height negated the cover from the low terrain. I got 1 hit and 1 kill on the Tigers. I tried to shoot a scout. These guys need a 3 up, and I got a 2.
Okay, so German turn 2. The Tigers had to take a morale test or motivation. They passed. So then for reserves, we have the 2nd platoon of Panzer IVs coming on, and then movement. The infantry platoon here moved up. Tanks that were here have moved up to behind here to avoid the fire from the Pershings. The ones that came on have galloped up to the centre of the ville at the moment, or moving towards the centre of the ville. The infantry platoon from here has moved into these 2 buildings, and the company HQ has moved up into this building. On this wing, the panzers have stayed where they are. The mortars haven't done anything. They haven't actually fired this turn because there's no one within range anymore. Left the ranging marker in case he wants to get closer. Our Tiger, heroic Tiger, fired, knocked out a Pershing, and then has blitzed to come a bit further forward in.
So that's 1-0 for the heavies.
Yep, 1 each. Yeah.
US turn 2, so I got to do a last stand on my Persian and it ran away. Wait a minute. The Persians are dead by the start of turn 2. A couple more guys moved into this house, so it's now about 5 guys in here. And then in terms of shooting, which is these guys firing a bombardment in there, managed to get 3 hits, company command, a couple on the platoon, so they're pinned but no kills. And that's it, guys. I'm afraid this game may be over,
extremely soon. So over to Mark for his turn 3.
Right, so German turn 3. Motivation, Tiger with its 2+ last stand, passed easily, and then basically nobody else had to do any motivating.
Oh no, there was unpinning.
Oh, sorry, unpinning. Yep, so the infantry in here and the company commander unpinned. And then for movement, the infantry scuttled from this building into this one, still under the artillery template, but they've scuttled away a bit. The other infantry platoon has moved up, but with some sneaky tanks that they think are at the back of the hill. They have decided not to go running into the open. The Tiger has moved up in support. The 3 Panzer IVs here decided to try and cross the hedge line, and each one rolled a 1. So they've all just stuck there.
Doing it in style.
The mortar platoons stayed where it is. The tank platoon from here moved up, had a pop at the Calliops, and
Got one hit.
got 1 hit, but didn't do anything more. And that's basically it. On this side, the German platoons moved up.
I got the last reserves.
Last reserve came on, and he moved up, and then the company HQ from here has moved up to take the ridge line to possibly start putting some firepower down there at some point.
Yank turn 2, there wasn't any motivations that turn. That wee mortar dug in. These guys are doomed, so they're just going to try and kill some infantry and just move up with the machine guns. These guys blitzed up onto the hill, fired, got 2 hits here, but it's only at attack 10, and there was 1 potential bail, and it was a failed firepower on it. The other one was a save, and then with the machine guns, these guys managed to get a pin. That might do something, but got 2 kills on that platoon, and that's it for the Yanks, guys. No reserves. Forgot to say no reserves. I need reserves, and they've got to come in here, or it's pretty much game over.
Hi, German turn
4.
German turn 4. Motivations, the Tiger stayed. The infantry didn't unpin. Nobody else had to worry about motivation. So from movement point of view, the infantry dug in. The panzers here blitzed and got up to here. This panzer platoon tried to blitz and failed, but still moved forward to get within range of the Calliops. The infantry over on this side moved forward. Tanks didn't do anything. As regards then moving on to shooting, the Tiger, Great Tiger Ace, fired at the Chaffees, hit 2, destroyed 2. The infantry there didn't shoot. These guys fired and missed, not rolling above a 2, even with blitz.
Shooting the Chaffees.
And then these guys here were having a pop at the Calliops and managed to get a hit, even with failing their blitz roll, but only managed to bail him anyway. And the guys over on this side had a pop for the infantry over there and missed. Oh, and the guys in here, forgot about them. Some of them snuck forward into the other building. And that was the Germans.
US turn 4. Motivation, there was a remount for a Calliope. As you can see, they've just moved behind the hill. I got reserves on, and of course they came in over here, guys. At least they got line of sight down that road with a 36-inch range. In terms of movement, obviously they've moved up. I sent a bazooka out on what turned out to be a very unfortunate mission. And that was about it for movement. So in terms of shooting, these guys that have subsequently shooted and scooted actually managed to kill and bail a tank. These guys managed to kill one, got 1 hit, killed it. The bazooka who was in the church also managed to get a hit and just got a bail, but that was perfectly set up for an assault. There was a wee bit of counter fire coming from infantry, but I made it in and then I missed. And then this guy motivating came around and killed me. So that's it really, guys. I really needed the reserves over here. I killed a couple of tanks, but these guys can very easily remount and come in and those infantry unpin, finish me off, guys. So over to Mark for his turn 5.
German turn 5. So for motivation, the infantry platoon here has still remained pinned down, didn't pass. Tiger tank passed. The tank for this platoon remounted, tank for this platoon didn't remount. The man survived his last stand. So then moving on to movement. Obviously they didn't go anywhere. A Tiger came up. These two guys crossed here successfully and came up, so now contesting the objective. If they can not get attacked, they can hold it. He galloped forward to have a pot shot at the Tigers over the tanks over there. This infantry platoon here fell back because the nasty sneaky Americans might be coming around the flank, and the infantry platoon that was in here has split itself up, basically to stop sneaky Americans from charging in the back of tanks. That's not very nice for them. And that basically shooting. We put smoke down from the mortars to hopefully safeguard our tanks from any nasty American fire. And the guy over there on his sneaky shot, Ace, managed to hit the chaffee, but only managed to bail it. And that was the German score, basically.
American turn 5. In terms of motivation, the chaffee thankfully remounted, so there was no check needed there. I only got one reserve again, folks, with 3 dice. It was didn't roll anything, but got the 1 platoon in, and at least they came in over here, and it's my 2 tank platoon now. Really putting the pressure on. Nothing else in the way of motivation, so these came on from the corner to get flank shots. These moved through the smoke using the stabilisers again, and then these guys using the stabilisers did necessary cross checks, and these have moved up just to be able to contest the objective when everything else dies next turn. In terms of shooting, 4 shots needing 5s, I got 1 hit. 12 against armour 8, potential bail, nothing. These guys though managed to get a couple of hits straight to firepower and killed it. And then these guys, because of the stabilisers, needed to get 7s to hit him, so you can guess what happened there. And that was it for shooting, folks. So there's still a bloody big, nasty big Tiger and loads of infantry over there.
We got to start. Right, so the infantry here didn't rally. The Tiger here survived his last stand test. Over here, the guy didn't get back into his tank, but he survived his last stand test. And nobody else had any tests. So moving on to movement. Nobody moved on this side. The Tiger, the Panzer 4 came round to have a pop at these. These Panthers, Panzer 4s came across. The infantry who had moved back the previous turn dug in. And then it's back to shooting basically. So these guys here had a pop with a Panzerfaust here, didn't do anything. This guy fired 2 shots and managed to bail.
Yeah, he bailed the straight to firepower on the 70s, the Easy 8.
Easy 8.
And then
bailed him.
The Jumbo saved.
Yep. On to this one. The man fired and missed. Panzerfaust from here actually managed to get him to bail, and then we did an assault, which took took 1 casualty. Yeah. We went in, a couple of 2s and fro's. Eventually managed to get the Americans to demotivate.
He ran away, which meant he was bailed out, captured, dead. 1 chaffee. American turn 6. So the chaffee stayed. I got my last reserve on, and it came anyway on the back edge, so I brought them on here. And then I was in a good place for shooting. These guys are stabilisers, guys. Brian told me you're going to hate stabilisers. Try to hit a tank at long range with a careful tank. You need a 7. You know, you might get 2 dice in each one, but you're not going to get any 7s. They'll come along very rarely. So they all missed. Including actually even at short range. Then these guys managed to get a hit and a bailed him. He missed, he rolled 2 2s, just needed 4s. These guys, 4 shots on 4s, they got 1 hit. He failed his armour though, and then I bailed him. Tried a few shots at the infantry, it can't do anything, it's a mortar one. These ranged in over here. Didn't get any hits on these guys. They're ranged in there now. But Mark's very much still in it, just comes down to motivations just now, and in 1 turn he could easily finish off that platoon.
Okay, so German turn. Eventually, the Grenadiers over here managed to motivate themselves. The Tiger did not get back in though, and the two tanks in this platoon both decided they'd had enough and legged it.
They failed their remount, and then the last stand. The Tiger passed his last stand though.
Basically then on to movement, not having a lot left to move. Basically the company commander for the tank company came across here, and then that was basically all. So shooting, the mortars had a pop at the American reconnaissance unit and knocked out one of the jeeps, and the tank company commander had a wonder shot and KO'd one of the EZ8s over there.
I think he ruffled the curtains on that house on the way past.
And that was basically the German turn.
US turn 6. So in terms of motivation, the wee chaffee stayed. In terms of movement, the what do you call them, greyhounds? I've moved over to there. The jeep stayed put. These guys stayed put. He blitzed to here. He got 2 hits on the Tiger, but he saved. They got 2 hits on the Tiger and he saved. These guys ranged down on the mortars and managed to get one. These guys fired at the church, a couple of hits but no kills. Oh, and these guys, needing 6s, I have to admit, needing 6s to shoot over there. Using the smooth ride thingy-majiggery, no hits. So not really very much for me that turn. There's a chance for Mark to do some good shooting and get some vital payback this turn.
Yep, so the Germans, the Tiger passed his morale and got back in, and also passed his last man standing. These guys were okay. They were pinned by the mortar, but they rallied, so they were fine. And
mortars too. The mortars,
and the mortars managed to rally as well. Then movement. Basically, the tanks came across here. Being exposed in the open would have just meant that they got shot up, so no point doing that. Tiger tried to do a blitz to get armour in a better position, failed, and then fired at the company HQ of the Americans and missed. And basically that was all the German turn.
So American turn 8. The chaffee stayed with the help of a reroll. These guys here moved up to get shots on the Tiger. They would have been hell of a shots because of the stabilisers. I'm moving up my greyhounds in the hope of working towards that objective. And then in terms of shooting the Calliopes, got a couple of hits but no kills. There was a couple of hits on here from various shooting but no kills on the infantry. Here I managed to get a hit and it finally failed to save, and I finally passed a firepower, so that's dead, and that'll break the armour company, which just leaves the infantry. But we have to decide if there's any reasonable prospect of me taking an objective anytime soon, or if it's just a draw. Well folks, whilst I'm in a stronger position, by the time it would take me to get over to probably that objective there, we'd probably end up playing about 3.5 hours or thereabouts, and it's getting late, so we're going to call it a draw. Mark, what did you think about your list, the mission and how the game went?
On the whole, I think the mission and the mission was fine. Failed, but in the last turn, with the tank company disappearing, I was a bit concerned to begin with the Tiger getting knocked out over here.
I was overjoyed.
but the retort to knock out the Pershing and then
I ran away
was quite good. No particular flaws with the list. I think it's quite a balanced list for multiple options. It worked quite well until the American reserves came on over there and managed to do the little bit of knocking out over there. In all the missions you got to attack, the Panzer IVs only got 6 front armour, so they're going to struggle. But I don't think the list let me down. The Tiger was heroic as usual. And the basic plan was to move up, hopefully before Frank's reserves came on, and take that objective seemed to be the strongest, the easiest one to take, which is where we focused, which is probably why Frank then put his ambush on there, obviously. And the game worked. But a little bit unlucky with a couple of the dice rolls around here.
Yeah,
to
you
knock out the tank platoons earlier on.
2 failed, 3 up.
Yeah.
Remounts, and then a failed 3 up. Last stand was pretty unlucky.
Okay. So yeah, but that's the way it is. It's a game at the end of the day. So no, I'm quite happy with the list and result. The one thing that might have been more useful, well, just didn't have the points, would have been to have had the company commander having Panzerfaust, which meant I might have been able to shoot the Panzerfaust up, and that little Shaffy might be dead. But that's about the only thing that I would.
One thing I would say about that Shaffy is it never did anything after that.
So yeah.
Well, as far as that goes, I honestly do not know how I'm still on the table. When I popped to ambush, killed the tiger, I was like, hee. So this is going to be so easy. Kill the tigers, Persians mop everything up. And then she bloody won 2 dice back, get me in a 6, and then I run away. I was like, shit, I'm so dead. And it took me forever to kill that tiger. With the 2 tanks just sitting 4 shots, whether they were stabilisers or not, I was only getting like 1 hit a turn and things. And you kept making, one turn you made 2 saves, I was like, oh my goodness. I think if your infantry had unpinned earlier, it would have been very different for me, because you could have got in a position before perhaps my Calliopes were up there with their MGs, so that was a bit unlucky again. And once again, I have no idea how I'm still on the table. The only chance is, well, I had a win in this game, and it is tricky for the defender to hold on with delayed reserves, scattered reserves. The only way I could have done it is kill the tiger with them early doors to then head off towards the objective if I didn't have the Panzer Force to worry about. So I'm happy enough just to have managed a draw. And these guys, easy 8s, I did smooth ride once and missed. Smooth ride when you need a 6 to hit, not much use. But there you go anyway, folks. From my point of view, that's the Spearhead Force being used. It's not how I wanted to use it. I think I'd like to see it attack, so I'll probably use it in another mission as an attacking force to see if it can do anything. Certainly when it's split up in reserves, it's just not got any staying power or bite. It just relies on your opponent not hitting you, and you can manage that up to a point. But when you've got Mr. Deadeye Tiger over there, he was only not dangerous when he wasn't in his tank. The rest of the time he was hitting stuff left, right and centre, and even the company command getting a 6 through that alleyway. So we'll see. I'll use them again and let you see how they are in attack. But anyway, Mark, thanks for the game.
Yeah, thanks, Frank.
At first I thought it was going to be pretty boring, but I think it turned out quite interesting.
Of course. I think the little tiger, he was the hero of the game, but he'd stayed out of his tank for a couple of turns as well. If he'd actually got back in during that time, then it would have been a different kettle of fish.
Yeah. Well, anyway, there you go, folks. Thanks for watching. Thanks again to all the subscribers out there. And if you'd like to subscribe, please do so to help us build the channel and bring this content to people who like the game. And if you hit the bell button, we'll definitely see you on the next one. Cheers, Mark.
Thanks, Frank. Cheers now.